The Galactic Military Academy's tactical studies classroom buzzed with the usual mix of arrogance and ambition. Holographic star maps flickered above polished desks, while students from 17 different species pretended to pay attention to Professor Grix's droning lecture about elementary fleet positioning. In the front row, Commander Vex preened his emerald scales and corrected the professor for the third time that morning. The Saurian loved nothing more than demonstrating his encyclopedic knowledge of military theory. Behind him, Princess Zara clicked her mandibles dismissively at everything the reptile said, her compound eyes scanning the room for someone worthy of her attention. Captain Thorne ruffled his iridescent feathers and squawked occasional commentary, convinced that his avian heritage made him naturally superior at aerial tactics. And in the very back corner, almost invisible behind a stack of outdated textbooks, sat Luna Park. The human exchange student was unremarkable in every possible way. Average height, brown hair pulled into a practical ponytail, wearing the Academy's standard-issue gray uniform that somehow looked even more boring on her. She never spoke in class, never asked questions, and had somehow managed to maintain perfect academic invisibility for 3 months. The other students had long since stopped noticing her presence. Professor Grix, a crystalline being whose face occasionally shifted colors with his moods, turned from the holographic display with barely contained smugness. "Now then, class, I have prepared what you might call a practical exercise. A simple tactical simulation to test your understanding of basic principles." Vex immediately straightened, scales practically glowing with anticipation. "Professor, might I suggest increasing the difficulty parameters? Some of us have already mastered elementary scenarios." "How presumptuous," Zara buzzed, her wings twitching with irritation. "Perhaps the reptile should focus on passing before attempting advanced coursework." Thorne cawed with laughter. "Neither of you flying rodents could handle real combat complexity. My people have been aerial predators for millennia." Professor Grix's crystalline form shifted to an amused amber hue. "Excellent enthusiasm, though I notice our human observer remains characteristically silent." All eyes turned toward the back corner, where Luna hadn't moved from her position behind the textbooks. "Miss Park, surely you have some input on tactical methodology?" Luna looked up from what appeared to be a nutrition label she'd been studying with intense concentration. "Oh, I have a question, actually." The classroom fell silent. In 3 months, these were possibly the first words she'd spoken aloud. "By all means," Professor Grix said, his form shifting to an expectant blue. Luna tilted her head slightly, expression perfectly innocent. "When you say tactical simulation, which era of human tactics should I use? Ancient, modern, or classified?" The silence stretched for several heartbeats before Commander Vex burst into scaly laughter. "Human tactics? Is that supposed to be a joke? Your species barely managed to avoid self-extinction before achieving interstellar travel." Princess Zara's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among her kind. "The primitive little mammal thinks she has military knowledge worth discussing. How adorable." Captain Thorne preened his chest feathers smugly. "I've studied human military history as a curiosity. Crude chemical weapons, basic projectile firearms, laughably simple aircraft, hardly worth categorizing into eras." Luna nodded thoughtfully, as if seriously considering their mockery. "That's fair. I just wanted to make sure I understood the parameters correctly." Professor Grix, now shifting to a patronizing green, decided this presented an excellent teaching opportunity. "Class, this exemplifies why preliminary assessment is crucial. Miss Park, your question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of tactical sophistication. However, since you've finally shown some initiative, perhaps you'd care to participate in our simulation." "That would be nice," Luna said politely. Commander Vex's laughter echoed off the crystalline walls. "Oh, this is rich. The silent little human wants to play war games with her betters." He turned to address the class like a professor himself. "Fellow students, observe how primitive species attempt to compensate for their inadequacies through delusions of military competence." Princess Zara's wings buzzed with barely contained mirth. "Perhaps we should let the creature try." It would be educational to witness the gap between evolved tactical thinking and whatever passes for strategy among mammals. Captain Thorne cawed his agreement. The entertainment value alone justifies the time investment. I give her 30 seconds before complete tactical collapse. Professor Grix's form shifted through several colors before settling on an indulgent yellow. Very well, Miss Park. Since you've shown such confidence in your species' military heritage, I'll design something appropriately challenging. His tone suggested he was doing her an enormous favor. How does a standard three-front engagement scenario sound? Nothing too complex, mind you. The classroom erupted in excited chatter. Three-front scenarios were notorious for their difficulty. Even the most advanced students struggled with managing multiple simultaneous threats, and the scenario Professor Grix had in mind was legendary for being unsolvable. Three fronts, Vex mused, practically purring with anticipation. Professor, isn't that the Korvani Nightmare scenario? The one that's never been successfully completed? The very one, Professor Grix confirmed, his crystalline body now pulsing with malicious satisfaction. 3 enemy fleets attacking from different vectors, each employing distinct tactical doctrines. Superior numbers, advanced technology, and perfect coordination. It's designed to be unwinnable, but it provides excellent data on how commanders handle inevitable defeat. Luna blinked slowly, processing this information. So it's meant to be impossible? Precisely, Zara clicked triumphantly. A lesson in humility for overconfident primitives. And if I complete it successfully? Luna asked, her tone still maddeningly polite. The laughter this time was deafening. Thorne actually fell off his perch, wings flapping wildly as he squawked with glee. Vex pounded his scaly fist on his desk, tears of mirth streaming down his reptilian face. Even Professor Grix's colors cycled rapidly through what could only be described as hysterical amusement. Complete it successfully, Vex gasped between laughs. She thinks she can win the unwinnable scenario. Oh, this keeps getting better. I'll take that bet, Zara announced, her compound eyes glittering with malice. 50 credits says she surrenders before the first engagement ends. You're being generous, Thorne managed between caws. I say 20 credits she panics during the initial assessment phase. 100 credits says she requests to restart the scenario within 5 minutes, Vex added smugly. Luna watched this betting pool develop with mild interest. Those seem like reasonable odds. When would you like to run the simulation? Professor Grix finally regained his composure, settling into a smug orange glow. Tomorrow morning, Miss Park. That should give you adequate time to prepare your inevitable apologies. He paused, struck by sudden inspiration. Though I suppose we should make this educational for everyone. Class attendance will be mandatory. That's very thoughtful of you, Luna said. I'll need access to your historical database for research purposes. Standard Military Academy resources should be sufficient. Of course, Professor Grix waved dismissively. Access whatever materials you require. Study the tactical doctrines. Examine previous attempts. Review the scenarios. I encourage thorough preparation. Vex leaned back in his chair, scales practically radiating smugness. How generous of you, Professor. Though I suspect our human friend will find the complexity somewhat overwhelming. The mammal's efforts will certainly be illuminating, Zara agreed, her mandibles clicking with anticipation. Luna gathered her textbooks with the same methodical precision she'd shown all semester. I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm. This should be educational for all of us. As she headed toward the door, Captain Thorne called out, "Don't forget to bring tissues for tomorrow, little human. You'll need them when reality crushes your delusions." Luna paused at the threshold and turned back with that same innocent expression. Actually, I have one more question. When you say standard academy resources, does that include classified materials? Or should I stick to the publicly available tactical databases? The laughter started again, but somehow it seemed less confident than before. Luna Park disappeared into the Academy's archives like a ghost, leaving behind only whispered jokes and confident wagers among her classmates. The Central Library, A massive crystalline structure that housed the accumulated military knowledge of 47 civilizations had never seen a quieter researcher. She started with the basics. Ancient Terran military history, Earth's various conflicts, human tactical evolution. The kind of material that any academy student might review as a curiosity. The AI librarian, a helpful construct called Archive 7, noted her requests with mild interest. Researching your homeworld's military development, Miss Park? How refreshingly methodical. Something like that, Luna replied, making notes in neat handwriting while reviewing footage of something called the Battle of Thermopylae. Could you pull up comparative casualty statistics for prolonged siege warfare? Cross-referenced with psychological impact assessments? Archive 7's holographic form flickered with what might have been confusion. Psychological impact? That's an unusual angle for historical research. I like to be thorough. Meanwhile, in the Academy's recreation areas, Luna's classmates spent their evening celebrating their upcoming entertainment. Commander Vex held court at the Saurian student table, regaling anyone who would listen with detailed explanations of why the Korvani Nightmare was tactically impossible. The mathematical certainty is beautiful, he explained, gesturing with his wine glass. 3 coordinated fleets, each numerically superior, attacking from optimal vectors. No matter how you distribute your forces, you create fatal weaknesses. Princess Zara clicked agreement from her table. The little mammal will learn why evolution favored intelligence over primitive aggression. Her species' crude approach to conflict resolution will be exposed as the barbarism it truly is. Captain Thorne preened his feathers while addressing a mixed group of avian species. I almost pity her. Tomorrow will destroy whatever confidence that pathetic creature has managed to build. Back in the archives, Luna had moved on to more recent materials. Galactic conflicts, space-based tactical doctrines, fleet engagement principles. Archive 7 began noting the progression with growing interest. Miss Park, I notice you've shifted to contemporary military analysis. Are you perhaps reconsidering your approach to the simulation? Just being comprehensive, Luna said, cross-referencing something called the Siege of Vicksburg with orbital blockade strategies. Archive 7, do you have any materials on supply chain disruption during extended campaigns, specifically regarding food distribution and morale degradation? An interesting correlation to explore. Accessing relevant databases now. As the night progressed, Luna's research requests became increasingly specific and increasingly concerning. Archive 7, I need casualty projections for civilian populations during orbital bombardment scenarios. Also, do you have any documentation on psychological warfare techniques, specifically involving the display of enemy casualties for intimidation purposes? The AI's responses grew more hesitant. Miss Park, these materials venture into rather advanced strategic analysis. Are you certain they're relevant to a classroom simulation? Everything's connected, Luna said, making more notes while studying footage of something called the Rape of Nanking. Could you also pull up any classified materials on asymmetric warfare? I promise I have appropriate clearance codes. Classified materials require specific authorization protocols. Surely for a student exercise. Please run clearance check Luna Park 77 Alpha Kilo 99. Archive 7's form froze for several long seconds. When it resumed, its voice carried an entirely different tone. Clearance confirmed. Accessing restricted databases. Miss Park, I should note that some of these materials carry psychological health warnings for most species. I'll be careful. The next morning arrived with all the fanfare Professor Grix had promised. The tactical simulation chamber buzzed with excited students from multiple classes. Word had spread throughout the academy that the quiet human exchange student was attempting the impossible scenario, and nobody wanted to miss the spectacle. Luna arrived precisely on time, carrying a single data pad and wearing the same unremarkable expression she'd maintained all semester. The betting pool had expanded overnight, with odds heavily favoring various forms of immediate failure. Commander Vex spotted her first. Ah, our brave little mammal arrives. Tell me, Luna, Did your research reveal any miracle tactics your primitive species developed? Research was very educational, Luna replied politely. I learned quite a bit about acceptable casualty rates. Princess Zara's mandibles clicked with amusement. Acceptable casualty rates? How optimistic. In the Korvani Nightmare, total loss is the only acceptable outcome. Luna tilted her head thoughtfully. That's one perspective. Professor Grix entered with characteristic pomp, his crystalline form cycling through colors of barely contained anticipation. Students, faculty, welcome to what promises to be an illuminating demonstration. Miss Park, are you prepared to begin? Ready when you are, Professor. Excellent. Grix's form pulsed with malicious satisfaction. Initialize the Korvani Nightmare scenario. Full parameters, no safety restrictions. Let's see what human tactics look like when they encounter real warfare. Luna stepped toward the simulation pod, pausing only to ask one final question. Professor, just to clarify, are we grading on efficiency, creativity, or acceptable losses? The laughter that followed would be the last sound of amusement in that chamber for quite some time. The tactical simulation chamber hummed to life around Luna, holographic displays materializing in a sphere of light that placed her at the center of three-dimensional space. Enemy fleet positions appeared as red indicators scattered across multiple vectors, their formations perfect examples of coordinated assault doctrine. Through the observation deck's transparent walls, the Academy's finest tactical minds watched with barely contained glee. Professor Grix's crystalline form pulsed a satisfied purple as the scenario parameters loaded. Korvani Nightmare scenario active, the simulation's AI announced. 3 enemy fleets detected. Fleet Alpha, 37 vessels, attacking from Galactic North. Fleet Beta, 42 vessels, approaching from Galactic Southeast. Fleet Gamma, 39 vessels, advancing from Galactic Southwest. Combined enemy force totals 118 combat vessels. Friendly forces, 12 vessels. Commander Vex practically vibrated with anticipation. 12 against 118. The mathematics are beautiful. Luna studied the holographic display with the same mild interest she'd shown while reading nutrition labels. Computer, are there any restrictions on tactical approaches? Rules of engagement? Protected targets? That sort of thing? Standard Academy parameters apply. No restrictions beyond interstellar law. Interstellar law, Luna repeated thoughtfully. And what's the simulation's definition of victory? Complete elimination of enemy forces with minimal friendly casualties. Princess Zara's wings buzzed with delight. Minimal casualties. The creature still believes survival is possible. Luna nodded and began typing commands into her console. Computer, I need a detailed breakdown of enemy fleet compositions, supply line dependencies, and command structure hierarchies. The data materialized instantly. Luna studied it for perhaps 30 seconds before her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Those watching carefully might have noticed her shoulders relax, as if some tension had left her body. Interesting, she murmured. Computer, please implement tactical plan designation Thermopylae Vicksburg Phoenix. Clarification required. No tactical plan matching those parameters exists in standard databases. Create new plan based on uploaded specifications. Luna input a series of commands with surprising speed. Initialize deception protocol Gamma. Begin false retreat pattern Delta. Activate supply interdiction subroutines. Captain Thorne cawed with laughter. False retreat. The mammal's planning to run away before the battle even starts. How perfectly human. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies across the galaxy for decades to come. Luna's 12 vessels broke formation immediately, scattering in what appeared to be complete panic. The enemy fleets, programmed to respond to obvious tactical weakness, accelerated their attack vectors to prevent escape. Predictable, Luna commented, watching the enemy formations adjust. Computer, initiate surrender protocol on vessels 7 through 12. Broadcast standard capitulation codes. The observation deck erupted in laughter. Vex pounded his desk with scaly fists. She's surrendering half her fleet before firing a shot. This is even better than we hoped. But Professor Grix's colors had shifted to a concerned yellow. Something about Luna's tone bothered him. The human spoke with the casual confidence of someone following a well-rehearsed plan. The 6 surrendering vessels powered down their weapons and transmitted surrender codes toward Fleet Alpha. The enemy commander, programmed with standard galactic engagement protocols, moved to accept the surrender and secure the vessels. Computer, execute Trojan protocol on surrendering vessels, Luna said calmly. Detonate all antimatter stores when enemy boarding parties reach 60% vessel penetration. The laughter in the observation deck died instantly. She can't do that, Zara whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. That's a war crime. Those vessels were surrendering. False surrender followed by perfidy, Luna explained helpfully, watching as Fleet Alpha moved to secure her defeated ships. Article 7 of the Terran Military Code explicitly permits deceptive capitulation when facing overwhelming odds. Computer, are the mining charges in position? Mining charges? Thorne squawked in confusion. The holographic display showed Luna's remaining 6 vessels had scattered toward what appeared to be random asteroid fields. Except they weren't random. Each asteroid belt contained military-grade mining equipment, the kind used for large-scale resource extraction. Asteroid mining creates substantial debris fields, Luna observed, still typing commands. Debris fields affect sensor accuracy and navigation. Computer, detonate mining charges in sequence. Create maximum debris dispersal across Fleet Beta's approach vector. 12 asteroid mining operations exploded simultaneously, sending millions of tons of rock and metal spinning into space along carefully calculated trajectories. Fleet Beta, moving at attack speed, suddenly found itself navigating a 3-dimensional minefield of debris. Computer, execute ramming protocols on remote mining equipment. Target Fleet Beta's command vessels. The mining equipment, massive automated systems designed to process asteroids, adjusted course toward Fleet Beta's capital ships. Their industrial shields and reinforced hulls, built to withstand asteroid impacts, made them surprisingly effective kamikaze weapons. That's not military equipment, Professor Grix protested, his form cycling through distressed colors. She's weaponizing civilian mining gear. Everything's a weapon if you use it correctly, Luna replied. Computer, begin psychological warfare protocol on Fleet Gamma. Transmit live footage of Fleet Alpha casualties. Full spectrum broadcast, all frequencies. The holographic displays suddenly filled with images from inside Fleet Alpha's ships. The false surrender had worked perfectly. Enemy boarding parties had penetrated the defeated vessels, only to be vaporized when the antimatter stores detonated. The footage was graphic, detailed, and broadcast directly to Fleet Gamma's communication systems. This is barbaric, Zara whispered, her compound eyes fixed on the carnage. Luna glanced up at the observation deck. Fleet Gamma's commanding officers are now dealing with crew morale problems. Seeing your allies die to treachery tends to affect combat readiness. Computer, what's Fleet Gamma's current psychological assessment? Fleet Gamma crews are experiencing combat effectiveness reduction due to morale degradation. Estimated impact, 15% operational capacity loss. Excellent. Computer, implement Scorched Earth protocol on Fleet Gamma's supply line. Target all fuel depots, ammunition stores, and food distribution centers. Luna's remaining vessels, now revealed to be carrying far more firepower than standard Academy ships, struck deep into Fleet Gamma's rear logistics. Not the flashy capital ships or the prestigious combat vessels, but the boring supply infrastructure that kept armies fed and fueled. In the span of 20 minutes, Luna Park had turned an impossible scenario into a systematic dismantling of enemy forces using methods that weren't technically illegal, but felt fundamentally wrong to everyone watching. The worst part was her tone throughout the entire engagement. Calm, methodical, almost bored. As if orchestrating the destruction of superior forces through deception, perfidy, and psychological warfare was just another day at the office. Computer, begin final phase. Execute the Punic protocol on remaining enemy forces. What? Commander Vex asked in a voice barely above a whisper. Is the Punic Protocol? Luna smiled for the first time since entering the simulation. It wasn't a pleasant expression. The Punic Protocol, Luna explained with the patience of a kindergarten teacher, is based on the Third Punic War, which ended in 146 BCE. Computer, begin total siege operations on remaining enemy vessels. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. The holographic display shifted to show the scattered remnants of the three enemy fleets. Fleet Alpha had lost 60% of its vessels to the false surrender explosions. Fleet Beta was struggling through debris fields while being picked apart by weaponized mining equipment. Fleet Gamma sat paralyzed, crews in near mutiny after watching the brutal footage of their allies' deaths. Luna's 6 remaining vessels moved with lethal precision, no longer pretending to be standard Academy training ships. They had deployed weapon systems that most of the observers didn't recognize, and those who did recognize them were beginning to look physically ill. Miss Park, Professor Grix said, his crystalline form cycling rapidly through colors of distress, perhaps we should conclude the simulation. You've demonstrated your point quite effectively. Have I? Luna asked, fingers still dancing across her tactical console. Computer, implement the Sherman Protocol on Fleet Gamma's remaining civilian support vessels. Make sure the crews of Fleet Alpha and Beta can see the footage. Captain Thorne's feathers had gone completely flat against his body. Sherman Protocol. What's a Sherman Protocol? Named after a human general who understood that war is cruelty, and you cannot refine it. Computer, are the captured enemy communications networks still active? Affirmative. Enemy vessels maintain communication links. Excellent. Begin broadcasting Psychological Warfare Package 7. I want every enemy crew member to understand exactly what happened to their friends, and exactly what's going to happen to them. The holographic displays filled with footage that made several observers leave the chamber entirely. Luna had documented every aspect of her tactical approach, from the moment of false surrender through the systematic destruction of Fleet Gamma's supply lines. The footage was clinical, detailed, and absolutely terrifying. Computer, what's the current enemy morale assessment? Fleet Alpha crews are requesting permission to surrender. Fleet Beta has experienced 37% desertion rates. Fleet Gamma command structure has collapsed entirely. Princess Zara's mandibles clicked frantically. This isn't tactics, this is butchery. It's efficiency, Luna corrected politely. Computer, deny all surrender requests. Begin the Carthage Protocol on Fleet Alpha remnants. Carthage Protocol? Professor Grix whispered. Luna's expression remained perfectly pleasant. The Romans didn't just defeat Carthage, Professor. They erased it. Computer, I want those ships broken apart piece by piece. Slowly. Make sure everyone can see it happening. Miss Park, this is a simulation. Professor Grix pleaded, his form now cycling through panic colors. You're supposed to demonstrate tactical knowledge, not commit virtual war crimes. War crimes are a luxury for people who can afford to lose, Luna replied. Computer, what's our current casualty count? Friendly casualties 0. Enemy casualties 96 vessels destroyed, crew survival rate negligible. Commander Vex had gone completely still, his scales a sickly gray color. 0 friendly casualties. She hasn't lost a single ship. Acceptable losses are for acceptable wars, Luna said, beginning the systematic destruction of the remaining enemy vessels. Computer, implement the Hiroshima Protocol on Fleet Beta's command ship. I want their final transmission broadcast to all remaining enemy vessels. The Hiroshima Protocol? Thorne managed to squawk. Luna paused in her typing to look up at the observation deck. Sometimes you have to make it clear that resistance is futile. Computer, are you ready to execute? Warning, Hiroshima Protocol involves weapons of mass destruction. Confirm implementation? Confirmed. Execute immediately. Fleet Beta's command ship simply vanished. Not destroyed in conventional combat, not broken apart by weapons fire. but erased from existence by something that left nothing behind but expanding radiation and the echo of an electromagnetic pulse that disabled every nearby vessel. The observation deck had gone completely silent except for the sound of Princess Zara vomiting into a waste receptacle. Computer, broadcast final surrender terms to remaining enemy forces. Total unconditional capitulation, or I demonstrate what the Berlin Protocol looks like. The reply came immediately from every surviving enemy vessel: we surrender. Please, we surrender. Surrender rejected, Luna said calmly. Computer, implement the Dresden Protocol. I want them to understand that some lessons require permanence. Professor Grix finally found his voice. Miss Park, I'm ending this simulation immediately. This has gone far beyond any reasonable demonstration of tactical knowledge. Luna looked up with genuine surprise. But Professor, I haven't finished the lesson yet. We haven't covered the Nanking Protocol, or the Unit 731 protocols, or any of the really interesting examples from human military history. The simulation is over, Grix said firmly, his form now a deep, horrified purple. As you wish, Luna said, shutting down her console with the same methodical precision she'd shown all semester. Computer, final casualty report. Enemy forces, complete destruction. Friendly casualties 0. Time elapsed 47 minutes, 32 seconds. Luna stood up and brushed off her uniform. The Korvani Nightmare scenario has been completed successfully. Was there anything else you needed to cover in class today? The observation deck remained completely silent, except for the sound of several species experiencing various forms of physical distress. I have to ask, Luna continued conversationally, why did you call it the Korvani Nightmare? That seemed like a fairly straightforward engagement. Standard human asymmetric warfare doctrine, really. Did you want me to make it more challenging somehow? Nobody answered. Several observers had left entirely. Others sat staring at the holographic displays where the debris of 118 enemy vessels drifted in neat, organized patterns. Luna gathered her datapad and headed toward the exit. Well, this was educational. Thank you for the opportunity to demonstrate human tactical doctrine. I hope the lesson was informative. She paused at the doorway and turned back to the shell-shocked assembly. Oh, and Professor, next time you design a scenario called the Human Nightmare, you might want to actually make it challenging for a human. The door slid shut behind her, leaving the observers in stunned silence. Admiral Zara of the Korvani Imperial Navy sat in her private office aboard the dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, reviewing the classified briefing that had arrived via quantum entanglement relay just 4 hours ago. The document was labeled with security clearances she'd never seen before, and the contents made her mandibles ache with stress. The Academy had sent her everything: complete tactical recordings, psychological profiles, witness statements from 17 different species military observers, and a recommendation that made her stomach turn. Cadet Luna Park demonstrates tactical acumen beyond conventional military doctrine. Recommend immediate classification upgrade and strategic deployment consideration. Computer, play Academy footage sequence 77 Alpha. The holographic display filled with the moment Luna Park's false surrender detonated inside her own flagship's formation. Zara watched as the human 6 vessels systematically destroyed 118 ships, the exact same formation structure the Korvani Navy used for its elite assault groups. It wasn't a coincidence. Computer, analyze tactical patterns employed by Cadet Park, cross-reference with known Korvani military doctrine. The analysis took less than 30 seconds. The results made Zara's carapace go cold. Tactical patterns show 97.3% correlation with classified Korvani deep strike protocols. Estimated probability that subject has accessed classified military intelligence, 94.7%. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. Come. Colonel Zxa entered, his usually pristine uniform showing signs of hasty assembly. Admiral, we've received preliminary reports from our observers at the Academy. The situation is concerning. How concerning? Zxa activated his personal datapad, displaying casualty projections. Our tactical analysts ran simulations based on the recorded engagement. If Cadet Park's methods were applied to a real fleet action against our forces, projected Korvani casualties would exceed 95%. Zara's primary eyes focused on the colonel, while her secondary eyes continued watching Luna's systematic destruction of the enemy fleets. And her casualties? 0 friendly losses in every simulation variant. Admiral, this isn't just advanced tactics. This is something else entirely. Computer, display human military history files, classification level Omega-7. Access denied. Omega-7 files require high command authorization. Zara's mandibles clicked irritably. She'd been in the Imperial Navy for 47 years and had never encountered a classification level she couldn't access. Computer, what can you tell me about human military protocols designated Punic, Sherman, Hiroshima, and Dresden? Limited information available. Historical references suggest human conflicts involving total warfare doctrine and deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure. Detailed analysis classified above current user authorization. Colonel Zextia's scales shifted to a mottled brown pattern, the Korvani equivalent of turning pale. Admiral, our xenopsychology department has been analyzing human behavioral patterns for the past 6 months. They've identified something they're calling existential warfare doctrine. Explain. Humans don't fight wars, Admiral. They fight for survival. Every conflict in their history, no matter how small, is approached as if the extinction of their entire species depends on the outcome. The result is a level of tactical ruthlessness that most civilized species can't comprehend. Zara thought about the Academy footage, about Luna Park's pleasant demeanor while systematically erasing 118 ships and their crews. And you think this cadet represents typical human military thinking? We think she represents restrained human military thinking, Admiral. Our analysis suggests she was holding back. A priority alert flashed across Zara's display. Emergency session, High Command. All fleet commanders to report immediately via secure channel. Colonel, prepare a full briefing on the Academy incident. Include all tactical analysis and xenopsychological assessments. Zara paused, watching the final moments of Luna's demonstration as the last enemy ships were methodically destroyed. And Zextia? Begin reviewing our contingency plans for dealing with human military forces. Which specific scenarios, Admiral? Zara's mandibles clicked once, a sound of grim determination. All of them. 3 hours later, Admiral Zara joined 47 other fleet commanders in the High Command's virtual war room. The holographic space buzzed with tense conversation in a dozen languages as the galaxy's major military powers tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Supreme Admiral Vothake materialized at the center of the chamber, his ancient form bearing the scars of 100 campaigns. The room fell silent immediately. 4 hours ago, a human military cadet completed an academy training scenario designated the Korvani Nightmare. He began without preamble. The scenario was designed to be unwinnable. It simulated the complete destruction of a human colonial fleet by overwhelming enemy forces. Murmurs rippled through the assembled commanders. The human cadet achieved total victory with 0 friendly casualties in under 48 minutes. She destroyed 118 enemy vessels using 6 ships and tactics that our best analysts describe as beyond conventional military doctrine. Admiral Zara raised a manipulation appendage. Supreme Admiral, our analysis suggests the human had access to classified Korvani military intelligence. She had access to human military history, Admiral, which, as we're beginning to understand, represents a more comprehensive tactical database than any other species has ever compiled. Vothake's form shifted to display Earth's continental structure. Computer, display human military conflicts, chronological order. The holographic space filled with data streams that made several commanders recoil. Thousands of conflicts, millions of tactical engagements, billions of casualties spanning every conceivable type of warfare from primitive tribal raids to interplanetary campaigns. They've been fighting each other for their entire evolutionary history. Supreme Admiral Vothake continued. Every tactic we consider advanced, they consider elementary. Every strategy we think of as innovative, They've refined through thousands of years of practical application. Fleet Commander Zexhai of the Vorthan Hegemony activated her communicator. Supreme Admiral, are we discussing potential threats or potential allies? That, Fleet Commander, is the question that will determine the future of this galaxy. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. 47 different species military commanders, veterans of countless campaigns, sat contemplating the tactical recordings of a single human cadet who had just redefined their understanding of warfare. I'm calling an emergency session of the Galactic Security Council, Supreme Admiral Voth Akake announced. We need to decide humanity's place in the galactic community before humanity decides it for us. Admiral Keth Vara thought about Luna Park's cheerful smile as she systematically destroyed 118 ships and wondered if they were already too late.